Hello Vulpix989, hello Ninny161, Princess Back Knight 666, lovely to have you all here. Hello Ro the Fair Thing Lion, lovely to have you here. Um, the air thingy, the dust filter, hang on a second. Okay, I've put it in sleep mode. Prince Infidel, thank you so much for resubscribing for 10 months in a row. Wait, if you're back and I'm back, then who's touching grass? Wow. It's funny you should ask that, because that's actually like the main focus of today's stream. Is just touching grass. I have been doing so much touching grass. Puppy Girl Leica, hello, welcome to the stream. Do you ever think about how your username is like Puppy Girl Leica? Like someone who likes puppy girls? Yeah, I want to talk about. I want to do some liberal slop. It's been a minute, and I miss doing the liberal slop. Of course, I think it's a lot of fun, and I know you all crave the slop as well. Of course. Plus, Britain has a new prime minister, which is like meant to be a big deal, but I don't think it is. And I actually wrote a Substack article about it, and I'll read that too. I want to do the liberal slop stream. I also want to give you an update on what's been happening, because I've been giving like regular updates on what's been going on recently here with local organizing I'm doing, and shit's just been kind of insane. Like, I know it's been about a month. It feels like it's been about 5 years. Like, Million Peaches, welcome to the stream. Hello, it's lovely to have you here. Yeah, no, shit's been completely insane here. I said on my last stream, I've got to take next week off because we're going to have this street party, and it's, it's like... Prince Infidel says, new since yesterday? No, we haven't had a new prime minister quite that quickly. But new since the start of the week. I said I was going to take the week off because we had the street party, and then I had to take the week off after that because I was just exhausted, and then the week off after that because I had been also just really, really, like, super busy. I think one of the main things that's been going on is that, like, we've been doing rent tribunals, which I'm going to have to get into more detail of what that is, but it's a tribunal system. It's a ton of paperwork, and so we're one of the households of the neighborhood that has had to go through these tribunals, and like getting in the response form we've been doing, along with trying at the same time to like get everyone else to get through their response. It just like, yeah, it has been so much. And if you follow me on Tumblr, you will have already seen this, probably on my Instagram too. But the response that our landlord gave to us specifically was so much longer than anyone else's that I've seen, and it was so just immediately clear that they were aware that we're organizing against them, and that they have spent like special time on making sure that ours is like extra nasty, which is really cool of them. So yeah, that rocks. When we got ours finished, I was like, we can really do a big breath out now. My partner Abby, like, we say to each other a lot about like a big breath out, like, just, you got to get through this next bit and then we'll do a big breath out, you know, to just, when we're talking about like big stressful stuff. And that was one of the biggest breaths out I've had in a long time. I think we have crossed over the main big hurdle of like the last, for the foreseeable, big hurdle of like crazy intense scary work. Yeah, I need to explain the situation, because if someone's here who knows nothing about the local organizing stuff that's been happening recently, none of this makes sense, and I'm just speaking complete gibberish. But I like to I like to speak gibberish. Bleep blap doop dap gorp. I like setting out at the start of the stream what the stream agenda is going to be. So let me explain that rather than just a life update, the organizing I've been doing will be a main part of the content of this stream. If you're expecting a mainly liberal slop stream, I have bad news for you. If you like touching grass and helping people in real life, I have really good news for you. So, slop, not just slop enjoyers, but active touching grass haters, taking a massive, massive L on this one. If you love slop and hate touching grass, please donate to express your anger. You can only register an official complaint with the Council of Sophie from Mars by paying a fee to comment. You can do that by using command tip. If you're a VOD watcher, you can go to the link below and go to subscribe to my Patreon, actually, and on your why you're joining message, please express your dissatisfaction that there's not enough slop. Welcome, Vordrella. Lovely to have you here. Hello, welcome in. So, okay. It's going to be a lot of organizing talk. Please, if you are interested in organizing, and I have been trying to cultivate an audience, if you're unaware of this, I've been trying to cultivate for a long, long time an audience who are interested in organizing and doing things that materially make the world a better place to be in, and a fairer place, and just a more good place. So if you're interested in organizing, yeah, treat the main section of this stream as like organizing chat, organizing Q&A. I'm going to tell you about what I've been up to. My local organizing here does not make me any kind of expert on organizing, but I'm going to be, talking in some detail about what's been going on and how we've approached things strategically and what some struggles have been. And then once we've been doing that for a little while, and I guess I've given all the main points that I can think to give while also balancing a little bit, not, I'm not going to name the landlord, right? And I'm not going to name the estate that I live on. Not that it would be impossible for people to figure it out. Please don't. Please respect my privacy. I'm not. I'm avoiding being in interviews or whatever to do with it. So just trying to help people not get evicted here. I'm not going to name the landlord. I'm not going to get into too much specifics of people's lives and stuff. And once, I think we've chatted about it for a little while, we'll do some liberal slop. We've got some Burnham slop, some Brit slop to discuss, because the political situation here is really bizarre, and it's something that really has a lot to do with media spectacle and how it's manufactured. And how much control the media has over the UK politically. PVNRT has tipped £42.68 with the message, more organising please. That's really good to hear, because honestly, my neighbours and my organising with my neighbours has become such a big part of my life since this all began, and I really like talking about it, and I hope that I can figure out a sensible way to keep talking about organizing this organizing stuff, and while also respecting the privacy of my neighbors. Thank you so much for that great big tip. You have reminded me of the other thing I needed to talk about, which is me being poor, and also me being a renter. So if you don't know about renting, I've got really, really bad news for you. So basically, housing, which is obviously, you know this, a thing people need in order to be alive, somewhere to live. And so that is a commodity. If you don't know what a commodity is, we're going to have to maybe schedule another stream for that. But because housing is a commodity in the society that I live in, that means that I have to pay money to be alive and to be in my home. And yeah, so all of everything I will be describing is downstream of that, and also specifically downstream of my landlord is trying to raise my rent by several £100 per month. So please remember throughout this that I need money to live, and yeah, if you feel compelled by the villainy of my landlord, then please remember that you can help the situation out by donating. You can also subscribe. You can also cheer. Those give you all sorts of magical Twitch powers like emotes, ad-free viewing. Um, but they're also Bezos bucks, which means that the one of the richest guys in the world gets a bit of it, which you know. Okay, the situation so far. I don't know what that voice was. Sorry. Um, the situation, if you're not familiar with it so far, is that I live on an estate, which is how we describe in the UK, like a project. It's a housing project. Like it's a parcel of land where a set of homes were built at the same time, and the one I live on in particular is a kind that exists in the UK. This is so cool. Where it should have been social housing. It obviously should have been social housing, 100%. But unfortunately, this terrible woman called Margaret Thatcher existed and had a political ideology called neoliberalism. And because of that, a whole bunch of social housing exists in the UK, and I will just describe it that way. It is social housing, it just isn't legally recognized as social housing. It's on the private market. Social housing on the private market is described as affordable housing. And there are activist struggles all over the UK where people are trying to fight for more affordable housing, a higher percentage of newly built homes by developers, like just private businesses who have no like obligation to have a conscience, fighting for a higher proportion of those to be affordable homes. But I live on an estate, a housing project, a parcel of land with a bunch of houses on it, which always should have been social housing, as in council housing or rental accommodation owned by a housing association, which is a scheme of public-private partnerships that the UK has, where if you're registered as a social housing provider, you can be, housing people off of council accommodation waiting lists, while running a, is it like not for profit or something? I don't know the deal with housing associations, but they're very much still companies and they very much still treat people like shit. And a ton of organizing energy in the UK is being currently spent, like just spaffed out on just trying to get people to do. Trying to get these landlord corporations, these housing associations to do like repairs, to like take black mold out of where someone's living, even though there are, recent laws passed about it. The only word the British pronounce well is schedule, says Prince Infidel. They cooked with that one. The only word the British pronounce well. Excuse me. Firstly, I just did a mammoth post about this. When you're talking about pronunciation, what do you mean by British? Because like there is a closer, denser, packed area of accents in England than like basically anywhere else in the world. And that's just England. Like it's also super variable across Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. Um, anyway, schedule. Or do you want me to say schedule? Maybe. Unclear. Skeletal. That's one of my favorite words to say. Skeletal. I know that one's very, very, very particular to my accent. And I was born in New Zealand and then to a family from Liverpool and then moved around a ton. And then spent way too long online and got a bit of the TikTok accent. Skeletal. How'd you like that one, huh? Yeah, like the bare bones structure of something, yeah. Skeletal. Vulpix989 says, Professor Sophie, I looked up renting and saw a lot of other words I don't know, like numbers, friends, and cucumbers. Can you please have future extremes to explain these two? Because as a touching grass hater, I don't understand. I can't legally recognize your status as a touching grass hater unless you have registered as a touching grass hater, which again you do by paying a small fee and registering a complaint that the stream has too much touching grass in it and not enough slop in it. But if you go through all of those hoops, then I can register your application for the stream to be scheduled. I guess I say scheduled to discuss the terms numbers, friends, and cucumbers. Prince Infidel says, I guess the RP accent? Is that what you were thinking of when you said it, though? This is the BBC. Princess Back Knight 666 says, Oi, mate, you got a license to hate touching grass? See, there's a lot of them. There's just a lot of accents in the UK. And all those ones are just English ones. I'm not even going to do Scottish and Welsh ones because they just come out quite offensive. Okay, I've been rambling. The situation so far. I live on a parcel of land, an estate we call them, which has hundreds of houses on it, and it always should have been social housing. Unfortunately, it was on the private market the entire time, and can you predict any problems that might happen if you put social housing, affordable housing, on the private market? Oh shit, damn, a new landlord might buy the whole estate and decide they just want market rates out of everything. Damn. That's fucking crazy, dude. That's fucking crazy that, like, a private business acting toward the profit motive might just, like, completely wreck up a ton of people's lives because they're following the actions of an economic, rational self-actor. Shit's nuts, dude. So, a new landlord bought the entire estate late last year and gave out dozens of what are called Section 21 no-fault eviction notices. Now, as the name suggests, there doesn't have to be a reason for this eviction. It's a no-fault eviction. It is a legal mechanism that has existed in the UK for a long, long time, where someone who owns a property and is having someone else live in that property can just say, nope, I want that now, and kick them out. And they don't have to give a reason. They just have to have done all of their paperwork correctly, and there's no moral reckoning at all. That sucks, right? Let's ban that. That sucks. We shouldn't have that anymore. Let's abolish that. That sucks. So we were all agreed about that. That sucks. So some people worked very hard for a long time, including, check this out. This is pretty cool. Okay, check this out. Including notable leftist, real-world, grass-touching communist organizer DJ Mule. How about that? In something called the Renters' Rights Coalition, which pushed through a coalition of tenants groups and tenants unions, which GMTU, Greater Manchester Tenants Union, Mule was the chair of. This coalition pushed through what became the Renters' Rights Act. Unfortunately, it got diluted by the nightmare known as the Labour Party in 2026. Someone, thank you so much for tipping £27.01, a very unusual number. But I noticed that when I didn't stream last week, you despite no stream, still tipped £50. So I wanted to mention that on stream because I really appreciate that, and being extremely poor and also threatened with my rent being raised massively. I really appreciated someone tipping, even though I didn't stream. Something everyone could learn from. No, I'm really grateful. Thank you. Prince Infidel says, "Good for Mule. I've heard he's a good guy." Yeah, I've heard that too. Actually, I've also just experienced that. He's just a wonderful person. Like, I don't know. Like Mule gets crazy shit from a ton of people, and is also like someone with a shocking level of moral bravery and willingness to stand up for what he sees as right, and what like other people will admit to his face they see as right and then not act on it. Like he's a very special guy. I love my friend. Okay, I'm gonna catch up with the chat for a second, then we carry on. Famish Jet said, but I thought corporations are good. Yes, you're giving Baron Ridley of Liddesdale energy right now. You won't get that one right now, but you will later. Prince Infidel said, the way you specifically say schedule is good, and the way you specifically say privacy and urinal are bad. Because you would say privacy and urinal. Okay. I don't usually beef with Americanisms. Like I generally I don't even say anything when users saying nuclear, which is just not how it's spelled. Let's be real. And aluminum? Like where did the I go? I don't I don't fuck around with those. I don't even, like I don't object. But urinal sucks. That sucks. That sucks. It's a terrible name for a wonderful thing. Puppy Girl Leica says, no, landlords are important. They provide essential services such as error file not found. Vordrella says, I heard Mule doesn't like anything chat likes. That is true. Unfortunately, that is true because he was born too cool. He was born too cool. I've been to his house. I've seen pictures of him when he was younger. It was a born quality. Always too cool for school. But now class is in. Let's continue. What am I doing? A new landlord bought the estate late last year and dozens of Section 21 no-fault eviction notices. These are, like, you can't even contest the reason behind them, because there's no reason behind them. And the landlord started converting houses that were vacated into HMOs. HMO stands for household of multiple occupancy. It's one that more than one household is in, right? It's not like a parent and some kids. It's a number of people because it's like 3 people sharing a flat share, or it's like 2 people who are dating in one room and like a family in another room and so on. This kind of housing is... Prince Infidel says, Americans don't say urinal. That's how I've heard British people say it. Well, what do you mean by British? HMOs, these houses that have multiple different households in them, it's an acronym and a euphemism being used to describe super cramped housing. So when someone takes a family home and then divides it up to have 6 to 8 rooms in it, they're trying to make something super profitable, and they're like destroying one house that would be nice to live in to replace it with X number of houses that would be really shit to live in. And I can say that from first-hand experience because I've lived in an HMO before, and it was one of the worst like housing experiences I've ever had in my entire life. It just really, really like horrible. It's like being in student dorms, but you're, like it's like a military barracks. It's like a some kind of emergency storage for people, basically. And what's been happening in recent years, with the government not building enough social housing, and with the private market being, hailed as completely infallible and must be respected and protected at all times, is that private developers have been making more and more HMOs out of little like houses, like family houses or whatever, right? Like rather than build a new, like full-sized development of new build stuff, which is a different kind of property game being played with people making just absurd claims about what the property value could be. There is another kind of developer who is just in the business of hollowing out and butchering family homes and pre-existing buildings and turning them into these HMOs. Prince Infidel says HMOs are universally bad. They don't have to be theoretically, but they always are. My experience has been bad, yeah, for sure. 100% of my experience with them has been terrible. So they started trying to evict a ton of people, and the rest of the people on the estate, they gave out Section 13 notices. Now, Section 13, I'm sorry that I'm getting into bureaucracy, but it's been my life for like several months. Section 13 is a rent increase notice. So it is a notice by which the landlord formally says, I'm putting the rent up, and you will have to go to the court if you have a problem with the rent that I'm giving you. It's like declaring a duel or a trial by combat or whatever. It's just like, unless you'll really, really stand up to this, this is going through. And the deadline was June 1st. Hello, Valerie. Welcome in. The deadline was June 1st, and so Abby and I had a completely insane week at the end of May where we were working absolutely non-stop to get as many people as possible to file for this rent tribunal. So what's the rent tribunal? Here we go. Because the logic of the private market has to be protected above absolutely everything else, because we can never question the all-dominating force that is capital. The only recourse that you have if you are living in a home and you've been living there for 25 years, say, and you have children and you are on benefits, right? You don't have money, and you don't really have options to have more money, but you just have, this is your life, right? And then you receive this rent increase is to go to rent tribunal. The rent tribunal is in the business of finding what a fair market rent is. It's fucking horrible. So there are a ton of people here, and they're all like in really precarious situations because, like, by definition, like by design, essentially, there are people here who've been placed here because they needed to be in low rent social housing, and they've been instead they've been in affordable housing, and their entire life depends on paying a low rent that the previous landlord was not challenging. And now they've got these notices, and like, I'm struggling, right? Like I am quite poor. I'm currently doing the thing that is most likely to, keep being able to feed me. And I can't, afford the rent increase that the landlord's trying to put up for me. And the increase they're trying to put up for me is one of the smallest ones I have heard of across the estate, because there were loads of people here who were paying significantly lower rates because they needed to survive and for their family to survive, and they've put everything up to the same rates according to the basic unit type, right? So say you've got 1, 2, and 3 bed units on a parcel of land, right? They've just gone, that one's going to be X amount, this one's going to be Y amount, this one's going to be Z amount. Morgana says, is the Streamlabs PayPal only? And the answer is yes. And if you don't have PayPal, you can go to my Throne, which I think I've added a link for. Yes, there's a command for Throne. Pardon me. So, the landlord sent out dozens of Section 21 notices trying to evict people, and dozens more, like several times more, Section 13 notices trying to raise people's rents to these unaffordable rates, which are de facto evictions. And in a sense, like, provided they have done all their paperwork perfectly for both essentially just mean an eviction, right? They're just identical. Um, Provided they've done their paperwork badly on the Section 21, because the law was just changed because of the Renters' Rights Act pushed through by the Renters' Rights Coalition, of which our lovely DJ Mule was a part. If sorry, just thinking about Mule, just because Section 21s were just made illegal, they can't serve those again. So if they've made a mistake on that, that Section 21, that eviction notice, is defeated, and they'd have to go and try and find like a legally grounded reason to evict other people, and they'll for sure will try. But if they do their paperwork badly on the Section 13, the rent increase gets thrown out, and then they can just serve another one. They can learn from the mistake and just serve one that doesn't have whatever mistake they made before. The only way out is through the rent tribunal, unless the landlord just completely, withdraws from it and puts in writing that they're not going to serve a Section 13. I mean, even then, like, I don't know what legal challenge you would have if you couldn't hire a lawyer, if they put in writing they weren't going to file another Section 13 and then just did anyway. It's a really cool system we have here. It's working really, really well. And that's why we've been working absolutely non-stop, and like all my video projects are delayed and I haven't been streaming trying to get all this shit sorted. What do you do in a crisis like this? So applying lessons that we have learnt through exactly the stuff that I've made content about, applying lessons through that we've taught on Red Planet, that we've learned from wonderful comrades on Red Planet, like Luna Oi came on in an early episode and she was talking to us about the history of the Vietnamese Revolution. I've heard one historian say that the Vietnamese Revolution was essentially just tons of meetings. Like, the main body of the revolution happening was just people having tons of meetings to figure out how society should work. Luna Oi said to us that everything in how like the Vietnamese government is now structured is like community groups, is unions on every level, just organizing so that they can represent the needs of some group of people, and then convincing the central government to give them the things that they need for that group of people, like an elderly union or a queer union or a women's union or whatever like this. Okay, so we need to have a bunch of meetings. We need to figure out what needs to be done. If only someone had written about that. We need to figure out what needs to be done and how we're going to do that. So we have been thinking about things here in 3 phases that are essentially consecutive, but with massive overlap. Like, you have to start them in order, and they'll probably finish in order, but like they might be basically on top of each other. Phase 1, first aid triage. We have to stop people from losing their homes now. Phase 2, we have to punish this landlord. Because we are in a class war, because we are in a very direct class war where this company is the enemy in our neighbor's need for housing, we have to fight them and beat them and win. Fighting them, resisting, stopping people losing their housing, is phase 1. Beating them is getting enforcement powers, driving these motherfuckers out of business because they should not be in business, because look at what they are doing. And winning, what does winning mean? So ideally, winning means some kind of long-term security for the people who live on this estate, right? Like, ideally winning means like providing some kind of absolute legal guarantee that this will never happen again, so that all of the sweet Southwark Bermondsey nanas and our like big like diverse migrant population and extremely high population of queer people on this estate as well, almost like it was being run like social housing the whole time, um, will be protected and have, you know, stability, and if they need to, stay in their homes for the rest of their lives, right? That's the dream, right? That sounds like winning to me. So, it's been absolutely hectic. And I think phase one, keeping people in their homes, we've made really significant progress through now. I think that we are now in a space where like the support is available to people and the support is no longer just us. Something else Luna Oi taught us is that when there is crisis, to be effective communists, you must make yourselves the people that people come to with their problems. I have not been able to sleep great. I have not had time to work. I have been answering neighbors' WhatsApp messages because you have to be the person that people come to with their problems. And so that's the way that we've tackled, you know, phase one and keeping people in their homes. Once we got the hang of doing the things that we needed to do, door knocking, organizing meetings, arranging paperworking sessions, creating guides for people to fill out the paperwork, and making one-to-one visit appointments so we could go to the houses of the especially elderly or disabled or non-fluent English-speaking neighbors, then once we had all of that down, we were able to start focusing on bringing in external support properly. We now have multiple legal bodies associated with Southwark Council who are briefed on the situation, directed to primarily seek to like invalidate eviction notices, to support people through rent tribunals the best they possibly can, and we're telling them about what languages people speak. We also have supporting activist groups. London Renters Union has been very solid, very reliable. I have to especially shout out the Safer Renting charity because the LRU put us in touch with the Safer Renting charity, and the people we have met from there are actual angels, even if some of them are a bit too posh. Actual angels sent down to walk the earth. Wonderful people. The Safer Renting charity is like legal. They're legal professionals. I don't understand quite whether everyone there has to have a law degree. I know the main like volunteer force are not solicitors. They're legal professionals, I guess, and they're just making sure that everyone like has what they need. And yeah, they've been super. They have actually provided us with some of the like really annoying technicalities that we've been able to focus on to like to make our landlords' lives really suck. Okay, so I've already started to live in Southwark, so it's kind of not any further identifying for me to say that I live in a ward with selective licensing, because selective licensing is applied to most of Southwark, and just like a ton of like London boroughs have like loads of selective licensing. This is basically something that's brought in so the council can say, landlord, if you're going to let a property in this area, we need to check it over and make sure that we think that, you know, you're a fit and proper person to be a landlord, basically. I don't know when the landlord found out that they needed to get selective licensing for all of the hundreds of homes on our estate. Morgana, thank you so much for the £5 tip with the message. Thanks for another stream, Sophie. Meow. Thank you, Morgana. Oi. So, I don't know when they found out they needed to get selective licensing. I don't know why they didn't then apply for absolutely every property on the same day. But it's like, yeah, it's months apart, the times that they applied for licensing on different properties, and so we're running around with a spreadsheet that we got from the council telling people which date they got like the application was made. It doesn't affect the rent tribunals. It would invalidate any eviction notices because if you haven't even applied for a license in a selective licensing ward and you try to evict someone, you can't. Right? Like it's like, oh, check it out, like the barest fig leaf of like protection for renters. If you're in a selective licensing ward, a landlord can't immediately evict you, but if they apply, they can, right? Like they literally just have to have satisfied the criteria of buying the house and then applying for a license, right? The license could get rejected later even, and they can kick you out of your home that you've lived in for decades. It's utterly insane, the shape of property law in England and Wales, but especially, I guess we have been doing it really intensely, like more than just about anywhere else on the planet for hundreds of years, until recently. Like, yeah, like Britain's legal bureaucracy and legal machinery is like a core engine of modern capitalism, isn't it? Like it's responsible for so much of like the laundering of imperial money. It's like the all through the British Empire, obviously. Whatever. It sucks. It sucks here. The really cool thing about the selective licensing and the dates that they applied, which were not the dates that they bought the property, um, is that for all the time that you are living in a property that your landlord has not applied for a selective license for, you could get that money back. You could just take the rent back again and just go, nope, that was mine actually. I pay you rent? Nuh-uh. You pay me rent. Um, so, if anyone watching this is in the UK, right now, immediately, in the other tab, search up selective licenses for the borough that you live in. Volpix99 says, apologies for derailing, but is there a reason you specify England and Wales? Are things different in Scotland and Northern Ireland? Things are super different in Northern Ireland because it's a colony. It's an occupied territory, and in Scotland there is there's devolution, so there's a different legal system, and the Scottish legal system's also been like very different actually for a long time. So England and Wales is one legal entity with consistent legal frameworks inside of it. Okay, if you live in the UK, new tab right now. Google the selective licenses in the borough that you live in. Find out if you live somewhere where there is selective licensing. Then search. There should be a publicly available register of licenses. Search your address and find out if there is a license for your address. If there isn't, contact the council right away, and find out if there is an application in, and when the application was made. You might have to prove your identity and that you live there. And if you do that, then you might find out that you're living in a house where there is no license held, but there is a selective license required. If this is the case, you can claim back up to a year previously, but up to 2 years after the Renters' Rights Act of rent. So please do. You do something called a rent repayment order. So it's second extra tab I'm now asking you to make. And this, I don't need to tell VOD viewers, because this is obviously like, if you don't know about this, you could get thousands and thousands of pounds. But everyone, if you live in the UK and you're watching this, please do this. Yeah, search up selective licensing in your borough, specifically your ward will have selective licenses or not. And then the next tab over, get the form for the rent repayment order. You file that. You have to prove it later, but that's trivial if you've already checked with the council. And then you can get, as Valerie the Lovely Italian says, you can get financial compensation for living in Britain. So what happens when a landlord is really, really greedy and tries to wreck a bunch of people's lives, and they have hundreds of properties and they didn't apply for the licenses as soon as they got them? Well, I'll tell you what happens. I'll tell you that it's in the hundreds of thousands of pounds is what happens. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that one of the one of the estate agents or like property management people, there's like a whole shell company thing going on with subsidiaries and a liability structure, and it's all the same people. But one of the landlord's employees called me up to tell me that it was misinformation and that we shouldn't seek rent repayment orders, and I was just like, such a bad ruse. Like, what? You're telling me that I should. You are confirming for me that we are about to take a bunch of money off you. Anyway, the really good news for everybody is that it's not just this landlord. We will also be taking the full year allowed for the previous landlord who sold us, because they didn't have licenses either. It rips. So that's part of the beating them, right? You don't need to only rely on one strategy. We are like seeking council enforcement for a bunch of stuff that they've done, which we believe to be illegal, but we aren't legal experts, obviously. I'm trying to cover myself in terms of like libel law in the UK here. Like, it is our opinion as uneducated non-lawyers, as lay people, I guess. It seems like that, and we will be submitting evidence to the council to the effect that we believe, these are violations of our rights and so on. And seeking maximum enforcement. And it's also fine for me to say that because we said that to them, which was like a moment I feel particularly good about, is that we put together like a collective grievance letter and told them, like, just stop evicting everybody, don't put the rents up, just chill, have a conversation with us about like what this neighborhood is and what we're doing with it, and then we'll be nice tenants, and that's that. And if you don't do that, we are going to seek maximum penalties and prosecution against you in every possible way. Like, we will, so... but the rent repayment orders is, like, I mean, it's still technically like a council or like government process because it's through the private rented sector regulation, whatever, I guess. But it's a different strategic goal in terms of like, like, we're entitled to money from rent repayment orders, and if everyone files them, it will cost just an insane amount of money to the landlord, and it might drive them out of business. They may have to do something like sell the estate in order to cover their losses. Wintry Mute, welcome to the chat. Lovely to have you here. I'm just giving an organizing update to the chat, which is going to be kind of the main focus of the stream today. Welcome in, Joe. I'm trying to hold it as a bit of a organizing chat space, so I'm avoiding identifying details, but talking about like how we've approached the organizing stuff and what we've done so far. And now our lovely friend Wintry Mute is in the chat, Joe, who is also a tenants' rights organizer. So if people have questions in chat, they don't just have to be for me, they can also be for Joe. Where was I? So, rent repayment orders, because, we don't just have to rely on like the council being nice and like helping us. We can also like, take back our rent, and then like, that might just bankrupt them, like might just be like too much financial strain. They're certainly unhappy about it. But the council have been pretty nice. So the council have generally been like quite slow to act, and I think that understanding systems, which, check it out, it's a Sophie from Mars stream, everyone. I think that understanding systems is a good way to understand why that's been. So there was there were local elections across the UK which determined who was on the councils about a month into this stuff happening here. So from when it started happening, we started getting like local politicians and people hoping to be local politicians trying to get our attention and say, we're gonna help you. It's gonna be really, we're the most helpful, and we really, really care about what's happening here. And I have met some people in the local council who really, really care about what's happening here, and I really believe that. And I've met some people who I am a little bit unimpressed by how they've behaved and their general attitude. I guess that's how I'll keep it. I'll keep it nice and simple like that. But the nature of of our local council, Southwark Council, and many local councils, is that it's quite divided into different systems. It's a very large system, and at the top of it, nominally, is the councillors, who are elected representatives. Those councillor, I believe, is an unpaid role, which you have to remember that in politics, like a paid role isn't necessarily like super cushy. I mean, it is for MPs. They get paid fucking loads. But, like, there are people who work for Southwark Council, and it's their job to, for example, look at the planning applications. And they are there regardless of elections. And I don't know about what they earn, but, like, you know, they're just doing a job, essentially. And then there are people who are if an elected position is unpaid, it will skew towards people who can afford to basically have a full-time job while unpaid. I don't know if people who are on like the cabinet, like the like real like decision makers of the council are paid for it. And I also could be like talking complete shit about councillors being generally unpaid. But I believe that like yeah, it's that people aren't paid, and then if they're on like the head committee of the council, then they're paid for some stuff. But that'll obviously skew towards people who can afford to spend just a ton of time doing an extra job without pay, which I point to as a flaw in that system. However, the councillors are a mixed bag. They're highly ideological in the classic like party politics sense. They want to do what's good for their political party, often more than anything else. It's very cool. And they're in charge of a ton of different departments that aren't necessarily very good at speaking to each other, which are made up of people who are being paid to be there and do their work, and it is just a job, and they aren't like politically aligned, or you know, aren't supposed to be politically aligned, I guess. And then you just have to hope that like a department of a council that is shaped in a certain way, that were ideological decisions made by political parties, isn't full of people who also like have very strong ideological positions in a negative way towards people. Like, for example, if a planning department were full of like absolute Friedmanite neoliberal maniacs, like really as hardline, like whatever. I guess I'm independently inventing the character of Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec right now, right? Like there's a kind of guy who's backing ultimately an ideology of small government, and if they are in the small local government, that's can be bad for people. So the council's response has been a very mixed bag, and it's important not to understand the council as one thing with a mind, memory, or center, because it isn't, right? It's many things that have to act as one thing. And as much as the councillors are like nominally the head of the thing, there are still hard limitations in policy, which yes, the councillors can change, but they can only change like by debating and voting and so on, and can't change very quickly. And in some cases, like can't change at all, right? Like a local council has to do. I'm going to keep on coming back to planning, just because I think it's probably one of the most accessible things to people who haven't been spending way too much time talking to people in Southwark Council. But I'm not trying to in any way disparage the planning department specifically. I'm just going to keep on coming back to that example because it's easy. Yeah. There are decisions about what gets built, right, that the law of the UK affects, And so the protocol of local councils has to reflect what the law says. And if they wanted to do things differently, there are certain limits where like they would need to go to central government and say, is this okay with like the planning law of the UK? Like, is this okay that buildings get built in this way to these regulations and for these purposes and in these places and out of these materials and with these studies and all this, like, you know, just a whole complex set of things. And the government might say no. The government might be like, no, that's not okay. Um, So there are complex limitations on local councils, on local authorities, and many of them are, yeah, just structural limitations rather than just people's like particular will in one way or another. And this, I think, is why I spend so much time in my work and the liberal slop stream especially, like highlighting realism as a stance people are taking in conversations, because whenever people are pointing towards realism, like what can be done, yeah, they're kind of operating from a very sly place, knowingly or unknowingly, right? Because like if someone says, here's a kind of real example we've been hitting into with like helping the neighbors out. If someone says, I've had a look at the eviction notice you've been given. Looks like all the paperwork's there, the gas certificate, the EPC, the deposit was protected. I can't think of anything. I don't think that a judge is gonna challenge this or throw this out. You should just move. What the person has told you is like being realistic or whatever. And if they say like, you know, most judges will not care about this technicality or whatever, that would be an example where like that might be true. And also if you then give up, and if a whole bunch of people give up, they might all just move out, and then it will like topple things for the whole collective of people organizing against a landlord who's doing something like this. And that's about like legal advice that we've gotten. But if it was instead about, yeah, like council protocol, right? Like we taking a cursory look at something and being like, this is how things typically go here, and I'm expecting it to go that way. Again, people kind of require some kind of like moral case being put to them in some cases, and other cases it's like they need to be shown some kind of other protocol they weren't aware of. I will say we have had encounters with some liberal politicians in our like journeys through this stuff. Without naming any names, without pointing any fingers, we had some encounters with some liberal politicians who were, I really feel like, kind of weaponizing this is what realistic is, in like telling us what can and can't be done by the council, because there's stuff that we've just like Googled. Like there's stuff that we've just like Googled, and it's been like absolutely in black and white on a .gov.uk website. Like the law is this, and councils can do these things, and then we've been like, so you know, we want to like seek like penalties and prosecution for this stuff. This stuff isn't okay, and we want like the government to be on our side in this. And we've heard, oh, like the government doesn't have any powers. The government's just kind of like a little baby, really. Which is just like, okay, sure. I've been talking so nonstop. Chat, when I tell you the way this stuff has been like on my mind, long-term viewers may appreciate this actually. It's on my mind like the like fundraiser, like charity streams I've done have been on my mind. Like the only thing I can really compare in terms of like an organizing like a level of personal responsibility for like organizing something, this too, only the stakes are infinitely higher here, is like when I've done like charity streams before and I've gone to bed exhausted after streaming all day and gone to sleep, and then just like slept really restlessly and woken up, and my first thought is just like, I'm back into this thing. I'm doing this thing right now. That's what I'm doing, and then I'm doing it all day until I'm asleep. That's what the week before the rent increase dates, June 1st, was like. That last week of May, getting everyone into the rent tribunal was just so completely like, the every thought I am having right now is about this. And now I think it's relaxed quite a bit, but it still feels a lot like minding a very sick child. Like, it's very like, there's so much going on, and at times things move incredibly fast, and a lot of it is also just like interminable sitting and waiting and worrying and planning for contingencies and making peace with what you know you will do if this or that happens. So all of that, as you can imagine, is quite stressful. And no one's paying me for it. So please remember that if you're enjoying this stream, if you're enjoying me talking about this stuff, and you'd like, and especially if you'd like for me to, talk about the organizing stuff more in future, consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. I'm not actually expecting to or trying to hit, where are we, £600 today on this stream. It's just the only stream I have had in July, so the whole tip goal is there. I think the message is from my last stream, actually, a month ago. Yes, please subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. And VOD viewers as well, please check out the links down below, and you can support me on patreon.com/Sophie from Mars, or you can also send me a one-off tip via my PayPal, or you can go to my Throne, or you can just follow me on all the different kinds of social media. And this is a little break for us to just breathe. And if you haven't thought so far about supporting the stream, for you to consider supporting the stream. By which I mean, this is my job, and I only get paid when people, online decide to pay me. And that's scary on a normal day, and I haven't had many normal days since like early April. Shit's kind of nuts at the moment. But yeah, I've been talking like super non-stop without really pausing to breathe and chill. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of space before carrying on. I will remind you that little donations still make a difference. There are many people watching, and for example, £50 is the same as 10 people donating £5 each, and there's way more than 10 people watching right now. Okay, what was I talking about? I was talking about how stressful it is. And the reason I was talking about that is because I wasn't actually trying to segue to plugging my links. I was actually trying to segue to saying that stuff's all really stressful, and it's also been really stressful for my neighbors who are sitting and worrying and trying to, get through this, and also, wondering if they should like just move out or whatever. And plenty of people have. Like, that's the other thing as well, which is also really fucking depressing. Feeling in real time like your community is being torn apart. It's absolutely horrible. And human beings are soft animals made of meat. Meat that feels, meat that loves and dreams and gets tired and scared and needs a nap and gets hungry and feels bad if it hasn't moved around enough recently, or if it hasn't seen enough new stuff. What a mess of meat that is. And so you can't approach organizing human beings like organizing robots. It can't all be cold and rational, and it needs to be human as well. So with that in mind, and also seeing that we could raise some money for the raise some money for the tenants association, which is what we've decided for our organizing structure is that we are, a local tenants group, a tenants association. We aren't like a renters union per se or whatever. We are like tenants and residents associations are common across the country, and we're a tenants association. Not a Twitch user 55 has tipped £10 with the message "fuck landlords." Thank you very much, and also yes, fuck landlords. Especially fuck massive corporate landlords. It's just like if you're treating people's homes like as a commodity on that scale, like you're just the devil. Like fuck off. Like you're just necessarily going to do deeply evil shit. And I will share this actually. I received feedback from someone in the council that recently, when the landlords met with the council, they said that they basically that everyone was being mean to them. Like they were like, everyone's being, we've made all the concessions and everyone's being really mean to us. And I was just I lost my shit when I heard about it, because like I've been having so many like arguments in my head with the people who work for these absolute bastards, and just trying to like get people to understand that what they're doing is wrong and it sucks and they shouldn't be doing it, and it doesn't matter what like the spreadsheet says, you just shouldn't be doing it, and they're not going to listen to that because they've already taken the step of like like intimidating old women, like lying to people about their rights, lying to people about their contracts and stuff, according to reports I have heard from neighbors and some emails that I have seen, some things that are in black and white actually. Like for example, like emailing an old woman and telling her that if you applied the rent control clause in her contract says like up to 10%, and emailing her and saying if we applied 10% from your 1987 original contract compound up to now, it would be fine for the landlord to charge you £10,000 a month. So actually, £2,000 a month is really, really generous. That's fucking like that. That you're trying to scare an old woman. What's wrong with you? Stop. Like that's a fucking horrible thing to do. So I've been having loads of arguments in my head, and one time when one of them called me on the phone, where I really want to like prove to these people, like get them to like feel, like understand that this stuff is evil, but unfortunately, I think the corporate body that we're dealing with also is a thing without mind, memory, or censor, and has to be treated as that because it's not going to be able to be appealed to, and like it doesn't have a conscience that can be met with an emotional appeal. So I think like that's actually been one of the most striking lessons of organizing so far, in this situation specifically, like this type of crisis, is that when people say like power only respects power, there are super fucking clear cut like instances of like, yes, this is just absolutely the case. Like this is like this social organism is only capable of listening to you, like in degrees that each person finds justifiable. Like this is my business and I take care of my family with this business, and this is my job. I'm tough with these tenants because I need to make money for my boss. Yeah, it's just the attitude that we take with this stuff, and no one feels like they're being like so evil. So this social organism comes together and it is doing just observably evil stuff, because there isn't like, the profit motive cannot make a discernment from between like what is legal and what is moral, right? What is allowed can happen according to the profit motive, and if it is profitable, it will happen. That's how the profit motive works. fucking anyway. Anyway, um, we've had to just meet this, with like the power that we can organize together, and the strength of like neighbors talking to each other, finding out what our legal recourse is, and then causing trouble. And it's been super stressful. Um, with an eye to the needs of organizing human beings, I got way off tangent trying to explain this. We threw a street party, and it was also a fundraiser to raise money for the TA. That's I was explaining the TA. Um, the street party was like extremely sick. Like I gotta be real. Like it was just actually like I was extremely rushed off my feet the entire time and had about 4 hours of sleep. And also the street party was really, really, really fun and like brought everyone together in exactly the way that we'd hoped. And we hadn't like had an opportunity to like make some big speech to people that like you must, come together as a community and it will like, charge everyone up with like, feeling taken care of by their neighbors and all this stuff. We had just organized and organized and organized to make this party happen. And I think like half a dozen to a dozen neighbors said to me on the day, almost word for word, I feel like this is a proper community for the first time. And I was just like blown away by how successful it had been. And we did raise a bunch of money for the TA, which is good. Unfortunately, not enough for a legal fighting fund, which we really need. Like, we really need some kind of like massive community grant or something of like £10,000 to £20,000 to employ a team of lawyers to like, you know, like make all our shit absolutely airtight and ironclad. Um, but I think the more important thing was like bringing people together and creating these like human connections, and that is what we learned from the ZAD. Um, that's like the most crucial thing that I think we learned is like that there is a real magic in community, and you can piece it together by observing people well and knowing them and creating rituals and traditions and opportunities for them to come together that create these like, it's like if you drew lines between the people, right? Imagine they're all in their houses and you draw lines between all of them. Then they're invisible, intangible, they don't know they're there, but they're just this line. And then you ask them to come over here and do this thing and dance and have a little barbecue, and then you ask them to come to this meeting and fill out paperwork, and it's a bit boring, but they know each other this time, so those threads are there and they're like connecting and tangling with each other. And you ask them to come over here and we're gonna screen something and watch a thing together, and then the all the lines between people are tangling in different ways, and like people, you know, their experience enriches itself exponentially. So, as soon as we did the street party, there was enormous attitude, especially among the people who I had brought together to organize that, to do more neighborhood events. I'm now taking another little break to rest my voice, having talked for I think another like 10 to 20 minutes. So I'm asking you again to please consider paying for the stream. If you're enjoying the stream, you can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command TIP. That's !TIP. And please remember that everyone donating a little makes a big difference altogether. That's the power of working together to make things better. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. 10 points to anyone who gets my joke at all. Yeah, I'm chilling for a second. I keep on getting into a long run of just speaking with absolutely no breath. Yeah, I think we just learn stuff from lots of places. It feels really good. It feels really good to like learn this stuff about organizing and then like get to apply it so thoroughly. It's not like I had no organizing experience before. I've been organizing for a few years now, but like that's what I mean about getting out of breath. I was actually just like not even making sounds. My nose is kind of blocked up. Why do I have tissues? Oh, that's annoying. Everybody, please remember, if you're enjoying the stream, to consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. And VOD viewers, please consider that I'm A, quite poor to begin with, B, my rent is going up, and C, I haven't been able to stream enough or get my videos done because of all this stuff that's going on. Please, VOD viewers, check out the links down below, the VOD. And chatters, please use Command Tip or the various ways for Twitch to give that Twitch has for you to give me money. Okay. I'm just figuring out what I want to talk about next. We had the street party. Street party was a big success. Immediately there was an appetite to do more events. I said we should absolutely screen some movies. We've got a bunch of big, like, open spaces of like not all that frequently used car parks on the estate. We could absolutely just like have a bright projector and just project a movie and invite all the neighbors along. And we scheduled it in, and then someone said to me, you know, that's the exact time, like the kickoff time of the quarter-final World Cup match that has England versus Argentina, so everyone is going to be watching England play. Which is so cool. Because I think there's like a type of person in the UK who has grown up, like a lot of queer people are this type of person. A lot of people particularly into like STEM or like academia. A ton of women are this kind of person who's grown up like in British football culture. Now I'm doing it. English football culture, really. And like is put off by some aspects of it, and so kind of like distances themselves a little bit. And I've been one of these people a lot of my life. I do get the excitement of a good game of football. I do like get the appeal in terms of the like social aspect. I've always felt quite uncomfortable in the kinds of social spaces that like the social aspect is, you know, possible with football, because they tend to be straight men being very loud. And so you'll be absolutely shocked to learn that a neurodivergent transgender woman did not enjoy those spaces and distanced herself from them. However, as soon as someone pointed this out to me, I was like, oh fucking Christ, I really should have thought about this. I did know the World Cup was on. I hadn't checked about how England was doing. Of course, we should actually just screen the game instead. And I think this was a emotionally important moment to me. The reason I'm describing like being kind of a bit anti-football a lot of my life, was like, you need to get out of your comfort zone, and encouraging people to act how England football fans act is not my comfort zone at all. But I thought, like, I know my neighbors fucking love football. I know most of them are England supporters. We should absolutely screen this thing. And it was incredibly successful. Like, just another massive hit in terms of, like, bringing people together in the neighborhood. And England got absolutely battered. And now that I'm not in front of all my neighbors, I can tell you that made me smile. That made me, when I was standing at the back of the crowd after I went to pee and then came back from my house to the screening, and no one could see me, I did smile, because get battered, England. There are good things about the England football team. Their logo is three lions. Rah 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 rah. That's good. That's a positive, I think. Um, Marcus Rashford. That's a positive. He's sexy and kind. That's a positive. That's good. Some of those boys are cute. I'll say it. I'll admit it. Um, that's probably about where the positives end. In terms of the England men's football team, the Lionesses, however, wow. But um, yeah, there was a like a very successful event of like screening that. People got very excited. I was texting with another neighbor who like lives basically next to where we were screening it, which part of the estate we were on, the whole time, because she texted me and she was like, my twin newborn babies are going to be sleeping. How loud is this gonna be? And I had to like keep texting her, being like, are they still asleep? Are they okay? And she texted me at one point and said like, she texted me and said, did they just score a goal? There was a big yell. But the kids are still asleep. And I said, no, it was just some dirty play by the Argentina players. Um, I don't know if people here did watch the World Cup and if you are aware of the Argentina players, but it was nuts. Like they are like not they're stinky. They're stinky men who are mean. Not at all what you know, they're mean guys. They're not nice. Um I like said to a bunch of neighbors like how shocked I was by like a big shove that one of the guys did to one of the England players. And I think they were taken aback by my newness to the concept of like the players doing a big shove on each other. It turns out this wasn't just like for this one match. In the World Cup final, one of the Argentinian players got sent off. One of the Argentina players, I don't know if he was Argentinian, got sent off, and the announcer said only six players have been sent off from a World Cup final in history, three of them Argentina players. I'm just like, holy shit, these guys just love shoving. It's their favorite thing. They're just really mean. They just love to shove everybody and kick them. It's not nice. Um, Anyway, that was really really nice, and like the social event of it was really really good. And then because England didn't get through, we were kind of like, I'm not sure if we should screen the final. Argentina versus Spain politically has a great tension to it because Argentina is the colony of Spain historically, but it's now got like all the colonizers in it. Whereas Spain has gone through a process, it did some reflecting. It went to therapy. Spain, like went on a long holiday and saw some of the world and like thought about its past and like changed. And Argentina got worse. And Argentina is like is part of the like modern axis of the axis of modern fascism with America and Israel. And Spain, on the other hand, like has denied the U.S. access to its airspace to attack Iran with. Like Spain is really, really kicking some ass. So obviously, I knew who I was supporting, but I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm gonna watch it. And someone I'm organizing with, one of my neighbors, said that he's been amazing at networking with people, like meeting more people. He said that he texted one of the neighboring estates where he knows that they have a really big screen and they also have loads of England flags. He texted them and he was like, "Are you gonna screen the World Cup final?" Like we did a screening of the quarterfinal, and why do I keep saying quarterfinal? It was the semifinal, wasn't it? Right, because Argentina went straight from there to there. Okay, sorry, yeah. I was thinking it because they were like in a semi-final. There are four teams. That must be what I'm thinking of. I've just been calling it a quarter one because it's like they're quartered into the like there's four of them. But I guess by the end of them there are two of them, so that's why it's semi, because that's the penultimate one. Um, Sorry everyone, I'm like several layers off topic at this point. I'm talking about like organizing social events and why that's important to like organizing struggle. So my neighbor texted the estate that has a bunch of England flags because he figured, well, they love football, clearly football, and he texted them and was like, do you want to, like, are you screening the game? Can we come by? Like, can we, people from our estate, come to your estate for it? And they said, we're not screening the game for obvious reasons. For obvious reasons. For obvious reasons. They weren't screening the game. And my neighbor was like, that's nuts. Like, they have a they have a massive Latino population on that estate, and they're just not screening the game. Like, what's happening here? And then he realized that we'd done the same thing. Like, that we had assumed that no one would want to watch if England wasn't in it, and so had just not screened it. And he was like, "Fuck, we gotta screen it. We gotta screen the final." And it was not as big. Not as many people came out because a lot of people who support England only want to watch England play. And okie dokie. Um, and but it was still pretty big, and it was great, and it was actually like a very like engaging, tense game of football. So I guess I like football a bit now. Well done, the World Cup, for convincing me that football can be fun, partly by being so terrible and being so corrupt that I find it politically compelling. Um, this is the problem with spectacle, right? Is that like even terrible things about it can draw you in and make you want to like keep paying attention. Like I was saying this to my partner the other day. I am relatively lucky in that people who hate my guts, most of them, just don't pay attention to me at all. Just like they just look away. Um, like there are many people who are absolutely terrorized in life because people who hate their guts won't leave them alone and just engage in like forever campaigns of stalking and harassment. Um, and then there are people who are horrifyingly blessed or possibly cursed, horrifyingly terrifyingly blessed, because they people who love them and hate them both can't stop paying attention to them, and they turn that into more power in the world. And I feel like Donald Trump is like the most talented person at this specific phenomenon of basically anyone who's ever lived. Football, football, football has, I think, I guess this is true with a lot of sports actually, has a phenomenal, like, has an ability to like wield negative spectacle in this way. Like I think that like things being terrible about football can be really compelling, and finding out that like FIFA is incredibly corrupt, and like I think it's that the USA team got a red card, and Donald Trump just called up the head of FIFA and said no, he didn't, and then he didn't, and they just reversed the decision. And I think like he even posted about it afterwards. I mean, Trump just said, "This is what I did," which is so awesome. Um, Finding out that did make me like want to see what the deal was more. Cause I think in part because I thought like people who love football and actually really care about football, the sport, and it being good and it being fair and it being a competition of who is better at the game will be pissed off about that, which means they'll be anti Donald Trump, which like that's interesting, right? Like anti Donald Trump football fan. Great. Um, in the final, there neither team scored a goal for like basically the entire thing, and then near the end, Spain scored. and then they looked at the tape and it was like offside in some marginal way or something, and they said no, they didn't score. And it really felt like it was more of the same. More of it really felt like Donald Trump like called up and said no, they didn't score. Um, but luckily, in like almost anime protagonist like style, the Spain team persevered and got fouled so badly by one of the Argentina players that the Argentina player got a red card and then scored another goal and actually won. So, you know, it was extremely dramatic. It was very fun. It brought people together. We had a little picnic the other day. Honestly, like running social events for neighbors is just really it's just really fun because it just like you get to hang out with people. Um, and if like if you're organizing together as well, you've got like a good incentive to be positive, be curious, be interested in each other. It's a really really nice time. And I feel like we were like really, really building up the sense of community. So when I say about learning this from the ZAD, in particular, I met this carpenter on the ZAD. He was very, very, very handsome. Um, sorry, but he was. And he used to be a philosophy teacher as well. Um, and he referenced the virtuous cycle, and he said like when you are struggling together with comrades, when you're struggling together as a community, the community supports the struggle, and the struggle liberates people and resources and things for the community, right? Like the struggle for freedom makes it more possible to have community, and the community makes it more possible to struggle, and it's like this virtuous cycle. Um, and I think every Zadist has a different way of explaining this, and that's just the one that really resonated with me. But like, I think that's one of the crucial lessons that we've learned being there, reading Jay and Issa's book, which is fantastic. We Are Nature Defending Itself. If people don't know We Are Nature Defending Itself, great book. Please read it. Um, yeah, and filming the documentary and editing the documentary and like, yeah, just like learning about the Zad in many different ways teaches that lesson that like community is absolutely essential to struggle. Yeah, I feel very good having like applied that and um, bringing that lesson home. I guess bringing a bit of the Zad home. It's just really nice. Um, so, what's happening now in the neighborhood is that a bunch of people have finished their rent tribunal forms. The paperwork is structured like bureaucracy ping pong. So you make an application. You say, my landlord said that I should have to pay this much in my Section 13 rent increase, and I think it should be this much, and based on these reasons. The landlord files a form called the MR2. I think it has a different name, like one Rent 1B. I think is the name under the Renters' Rights Act. And in that form, they basically are just given the opportunity to respond to you point by point and explain why they think it should be the rent that they said it should be. And then you get one more chance to respond to what they've said in the MR3. And we've all just been getting through our MR3s. There's still like a bunch of support work to do. We're going to have to do a bunch more like individual visits to neighbors, as well as like we're doing another big door knocking drive next week. And for the most part, though, we are over the last biggest hurdle of paperwork. As I said, our response from the landlord was way longer than any other one that we've seen. This immediately made me think, okay, so they've like their legal guy has spent loads of time on ours to punish us for helping our neighbors, which is really cool. And again, like behavior that you have to look at yourself and question what you're doing, right? Like it's a real kind of how do you sleep at night kind of kind of moment, right? Like, really, what's going on here? Like, you saw that, like, these people are organizing to help their neighbors to be clear, like, access legal recourse, just like access things that people are entitled to under the law, right? Like rent repayment orders, like going to the rent tribunal and resisting against like the rent being put up immediately to an unaffordable level. Um, Trying to stop people getting evicted, and you're like, take those guys out. They're bad. They're my enemy. Like, you know. Ours was way longer. It took ages to finish it out. Um, it has been a huge relief since we sent it off because I'm just kind of like, even if we did a completely shit job, you know what I mean? Like we've just tried in earnest and done like, you know, done our best with nothing but like love for our neighbors in our hearts, and that's really nice. Like that's a good feeling, and we've gotten this far. Yeah, you know, I'm like I'm feeling quite unburdened just having gotten past that bit, and we'll be doing like a bunch more support work for neighbors over the weeks to come. There are more updates for me to give. As I said, this is like a gargantuan organizing update. Chat, if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. I'm doing my job right now. I only get paid when strangers on the internet decide they want to pay me. So please do. And if you're a VOD watcher, please check out the links down below and support me on ideally support me on my Patreon, but you can also tip me there or go to my throne or just follow me if you want to on social media. I have a Substack. We'll be reading one of the articles from it later. If you're in the chat right now, please subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. It would be really nice if I'm about to go to the bathroom, by the way. I didn't mention that yet. It would be really nice if when I get back from the bathroom, I had received some financial assistance because I'm quite poor. And as I say, all this nasty shit is happening. I'll have more organizing update to give after the break. And if you have any questions, now is a great chance for you to just think of some, to type me up some organizing questions that we can chat about as we pass through the rest of the update and the story time. Okay, I will be back in 5 to 10 minutes. I gotta be real with you, chat. Hello, hello, hi, hi, hello, and howdy, and hello, and welcome, and hello, and back. Hello, and hi, and hello, and welcome, and hello. Hi. I'm back now. As you can see, I'm sitting at my computer. I'm here in my living room. I'm talking to the stream. That's what's happening now. And we're going to carry on talking about the local organizing I've been doing. And I'm going to try to slow down how fast I'm speaking. Because I've been away for like a month, and I swear I've just like forgotten the healthy pace to stream at. Like, I know that you just need to chill. And I'm having to like pause and have a drink and be like, this is a break from speaking. But obviously, like, I'm not gonna fill the entire time with just the sound of me speaking. Maybe I should be playing a game while I'm talking about the organizing stuff. I'm not sure. Chat, how are you all doing? Did you think of any questions to do with organizing? Did you think of any? Does anyone have organizing experience that relates to anything I've been doing at all? They can also be political questions. I'm gonna need to describe some of the political struggle that we're doing now as well. Prince Infidel says, "How do you find ways to connect with your neighbors, especially the older ones?" Honestly, when you are showing up regularly to help neighbors, to help out like older people with stuff they need help with, they're pretty happy to see you. Like, I can't pretend I'm like best friends with like tons of older neighbors, but I think also there's a kind of older woman. There's a like the Bermondsey Nana is just like a is a special kind of person, an absolute ray of sunshine. She has been training her entire life for the Talking Olympics, and she would win gold easily. If there were FIFA-like teams of competitors for the Talking Olympics, every team, every country of the world would hire nanas, and there would be Bermondsey nanas would be like prized, I bet. Gloinbud says, "I'm a hopeless doomer, friend." Okay. I hope that sticking around and chatting about organizing can be helpful to you with that, because in all my experience of being a doomer, being like very depressed about the state of the world, yeah, just like meeting people and doing things to make things better is the thing that like lifts that for me. And I think that, yeah, like you just need to understand like ways that you could be occupying yourself with working to make things better. I think like people fall into that kind of space, I think, most often when things get very repetitive and things are a bit empty. Like, that's always how it's been in my life when I've been a doomer. Just like things have been just like, I can't imagine things going differently than a long period of waiting as things just decline. And then when I'm doing stuff, when I like actually get out and speak to people and do things to improve things, even like frankly when I've worked on like video stuff and I've been relatively still quite isolated and just on my own, like if I'm working on something I believe in and think is like good and helpful to the world, I feel better. Yeah, which I don't want to pretend that like that isn't just trying to sneak in some classic like therapy answers to depression. Like, it is like you have a depressed attitude to the world if you're a doomer, and like the things that help depression help with it. But like, I have noticed this, right? Like people have an avoidant or a like somewhat dissonant like um approach to politics sometimes, where like they might even be like fine in a lot of their life, but they just try to never think about politics because their only like thought about politics is everything's really really fucked. um no doubt things are worse than they were before. Like things have been getting worse. That doesn't mean things will always just keep getting worse. A lot of people are also experiencing the things you are experiencing, seeing the things you are seeing, and their feeling about it is that it's fucked. And a lot of other people are feeling the same way as you are, right? Just like, this is fucked, and I'm gonna do nothing. And I don't think there's any way to change any of this. And then a whole bunch of people also feel differently to you about it, and are like, the only thing I can do is something, you know? I might as well be doing something that I think is good and helpful to people. And worst case, at least I can say that I tried. And I don't know what to say, except I think that the latter approach makes you, at least you feel better. As I said, it contains some sneaky depression cures in there. Glenbud says, I do agree that things are getting worse, but I find comfort in thinking that things have more or less always been fucked, but loads of positive things have been achieved nonetheless. I mean, yeah, right? Like a few hundred years ago, right? Like, the most common way for any person to die was childbirth. Like, like, like the a few hundred years ago, medical science was so shit that just like most women died giving birth, and we've massively reduced the number of women who die in childbirth, and we've also massively reduced the number of babies who die. There are, there is a what's the word, abundance of like kids being killed in the world in recent years, and it's really, really, really distressing. If we wanted to be really cynical about like number of kids dying in the world, the number has overall gone down. It doesn't lessen the horror of what we are seeing in Palestine or around the world with just like the kind of eternal genocide of the working class through starvation by capitalism. But good things are happening. Good things are, things are improving in some crucial ways. On Red Planet this week, we're actually going to speak to someone. I think this will be appealing for Doomers. We're going to speak to someone who's organizing against data centers. I think the thing to understand is that like capital is protected by many many systems in our society, and at the same time, capital is not simply the only power holder, right? Like even on the most basic Marxist level, right? There's capital and there's labor, and labor is actually the greater power holder because all value in capital comes from labor. And so like if labor and the class that is the laboring class withholds its power and turns it against capital, fucking game over. But also like, in the organizing I've been doing, like we have gone to the press about stuff, and it's an interesting kind of rock paper scissors, right? Like sure, capital on a grand scale controls the media, like the profit incentive guides the actions and beliefs of super rich people who literally own and control what is said in the media, and so the media is the capitalist propagandist machine. Even while it contains some people who still uphold like the sort of idealistic vision of what journalism is supposed to be, and speaking truth to power and challenging, making the uncomfortable comfortable and the comfortable uncomfortable, right? And in the organizing that I've been doing, there is a power holder of the landlord. There is another power holder of the tenants, all together as a collective. When we're alienated from each other, We're not powerful at all. But when we're together, we're extremely powerful. We're so powerful that the landlord's like crying and shitting their pants. And there's another power holder, and that's the council, right? And the council has incredible power if it wants to bring it against the landlord. It could literally end their business. There is an enforcement power that local authorities have to just ban landlords that they find guilty of some things. Just completely ban them from being a landlord. Their business is done. And the council, in the same way that, like, because of the profit incentive, the the landlord is not like susceptible to shame. The council is susceptible to shame because bad publicity, affects how democratic institutions interact with the world. And yes, sometimes democratic institutions are captured to a point where you have to organize something that exists in an entirely separate space or wields like hard, really like meaningful power, materialist power against institutions of government. But where you can affect them, you can shame government bodies, and like making the what's happening on the estate like higher profile by going to press people has like meant that the people in the council know they will get in some amount of trouble, lose some amount of power potentially, if they are to like act in ways that will get them shamed by the media. Gloinbird says, but they have our minds. We have the power, but it feels impossible to convince normies we can do better. Okay, so when I just said a second ago that one of the biggest possible power holder in the relationship of capital and labor would be labor if the laboring class, right, were united and withdraw their labor, right? Direct their labor against capital even. You're saying, but they have our minds, right? We're controlled. But like, this is like when I'm saying that our tenants altogether are a serious power holder, a serious enough one that the landlord is now crying and shitting their pants. A serious enough one that the council is like being, pushed to act where they favor inactivity, right? That's happening because we're talking to each other. That's happening because we're coming together, because we're resisting alienation, because we're getting to know each other, because we're making connections, because we're building a community, because we're strengthening that community, and because that community is organized. On our estate, loads of people received phone calls from our landlord, and the reason that the agents of the landlord called them up was to not put things in writing. I need to preface this by saying these are all accounts that neighbors have told me, and I'm simply telling you what the neighbors told me was said. I can't say with 100% certainty that they were telling the truth, but only that a lot of neighbors have said these things to me. And I'm saying that because of the same reason why the landlord is refusing to put things in writing. British libel law. And what can be proven in a court. Neighbors have told me that they received phone calls telling them that they basically have no rights, right? Like telling them that their contract has expired, so they have to sign a new contract with the new landlord, or they'll be kicked out immediately. Telling them in one case, just go to court, you won't win. Telling them all sorts of really nasty stuff and misleading them and tricking them, essentially, is what neighbors have told me that has happened. And when everyone in society is alienated, that kind of thing can happen, that kind of exploitation. And when everyone talks to each other, right, we resist it. And resistance is a very basic, element of this. As I've been saying so far about the organizing strategy we've taken with this, you don't just have to resist. You have to fight them and beat them and win, right? You need to stop the exploitation and the horror that's happening to people, and then you need to take the fight to the people who are doing that, and then you need to create a situation that is a win for people, that is a long-term improvement over what came before. That's how you fight injustice. Fight them and beat them and win. When we come together like that, right, we break out of alienation. We break out of that siloing, that atomization that society has done to us, and makes it so possible for us to be exploited. So when you say they have our minds, you're describing a system of control in which a society where the power holders benefit from you being alienated, right? They instill beliefs in your mind. You're describing a system of the beliefs in your mind being controlled by people who have power in society so that you are acting in a way that benefits them. What do you think the number one belief that they want to instill in you is, so that society is the shape that they like it and the shape that allows them to exploit you? What do you think that belief is? I have a belief. I have a belief that allows for me to go through all of the shit that I've been going through here and keep doing it. Allows me to bring all these people together, allows me to drop what I have been doing that I care about, drop things that I would like to be doing, my social life, my work, my art, and go and clean up the bin shed by the block of flats, right, where I have to get a shovel because there are so many dirty nappies and dog mess bags and so much overspilling rubbish, to clear it up so that the area will be nice, so we can have our street party, fundraiser, raise money for the TA, help people, bring the community together, and after 2 hours of shoveling, literally shoveling shit, right, go and be trying to drop off the bulky waste that people have left behind in one spot, and the neighbor who lives next to there getting really mad at me because, like, why am I dumping all the rubbish next to his house? And I didn't think about that, and that's like, you know, that's fair. I didn't think about that, and I should have been more considerate in that way, but he doesn't need to be yelling at me, and then he's yelling at me, and then I have to go and cry because I can't, like, yell back at him. I need for the relationships to be good in this community. I need for things to improve and for us to come together, and I don't want to have, like, a beef with someone. And sure, like, later he came on, like, came by and apologized to me, and he said that he didn't, mean to talk to me in that way, and that wasn't fair, and he shouldn't have done it. And later I learned, more about, like, his situation, and, like, his partner talks to me, and I understand better what the stresses are going on in their life that I didn't know about. Nonetheless, when I get yelled at, like, it makes me weep and weep and weep for an hour and just have to go home and lie down, right? And still get up the next day and do all the things that I need to do to make the street party happen. I have a belief that gets me through all of those things, and that belief is that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. The number one belief that the people who have power in society instill in you to make society the shape where they can exploit you more, and they like it better, and your life sucks. The number one belief is that we can't fight them, is that it is pointless for us to fight them, is that it is over before it's even begun because we are doomed. And the number one belief that you need to hold in order for things to get better, in order to have the ability to make things better for other people and for yourself, is that we will win. So, we have the legal struggle. We have the community struggle. We're doing a ton of paperwork. We're scheduling capacity we're scheduling and organizing capacity for people to be able to get the paperwork done. This means creating guides for people to be able to go through the stuff. That means researching the legal situation, what might help people, what forms people need to fill in, filling out the best answers we possibly can. In some cases, giving them a guide where we say, like, select these answers that apply to you and put these together into these ways. It means having paperwork sessions so people can come together and do that because they might not make their own time to do it. It means being available for people to text or call about the things that they need to do. And it means also making appointments to go around and help people directly to fill out their forms and paperwork. In some cases, it means recruiting in people who speak other languages. We have a huge Brazilian migrant population on the estate. I have called in the help of a Portuguese-speaking friend several times now, and he's been absolutely fantastic and a complete star. That's right, Morgana. I believe that we will win. Let's get some more I believe that we will wins in chat, right? This is the way you say it if you need to say it to a room of people ever in your life. Okay, you say, repeat after me, I. And they say, I. And you say, I believe. I believe. I believe that we, I believe that we, I believe that we will win. And then it's a chant, I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. And it feels amazing. So I hope you get to do that. Everyone watching this, I hope at some point you get to do that. Okay. That's the legal side of it, right? And we're now just about in a position where we have expert legal opinions available to everyone properly. And we're getting more support from other neighbors who are also pitching in to help fill out each other's forms, which is really exciting. And there's the rent repayment orders. Don't forget that everyone's actually going to get, like, you know, thousands of pounds back because we found out what we're legally entitled to. What am I going to get back? Let me just figure this out for a second, actually. A year from the previous landlord. That's like... Is that... That could be up to, like, £15,000? Is that right? That's crazy, you know? And then from the current one, I think they didn't apply for a license for, like, 6 months? I want to make some money off these clowns. But to be clear, I'm going to make some money off these clowns in like 2 years' time because the court process around it is incredibly, incredibly slow. To help me have enough food to survive through to the 2 years where I get my big payout, please donate by using command tip or subscribe or cheer or go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. So doing the legal support stuff. Famish Jet, thank you so much for the £5 donation that says, you're so fucking cool, Sophie. You're cool, Famish Jet. Where was I? That's the legal side. We've got the community side. We're organizing loads of events. I'm trying to come up with like new kind of event concepts and stuff. Someone suggested bingo, which is just really fun because again, there's just a bunch of old ladies here, so they'll love it if there's bingo. I really think we should just do bingo. But like new stuff, like I really want to. I've been experimenting with a different like recipes for bubble mix recently, like for like blowing bubbles. Because we got a bubble machine, like just a really small, cheap plastic thing, for like 20 quid for the street party, and it was just like immediately kind of magical, just a fun, nice thing. And like I just realized everyone loves bubbles, and it's just like impossible to hate bubbles, like unless they like go in your eye, I guess, and sting you, but that's why you should research bubble mix recipes. So like I've been thinking we could get like more of those, right? Like we could get a bunch more of those. And what I specifically noticed was not just like everyone loves them, but also like a surprisingly small little guy like this, right, can like fill a really surprisingly like large airspace with soap bubbles quite fast. And I just thought, like, if we had like 8 to 10 of them, and people had like those little bubble blowers where you know, and people had those like wands, And if we did, I don't know if anyone's seen this. So like this is really common as like a seaside town amusement in the UK, and also riverside in big cities. So there's some of these guys on the Thames. It's guys with massive bubble things. So what you do is you have two poles with two lengths of string that are different, two different lengths of string basically tied off, so it creates a loop naturally, and then you just like you need to hold it up and like learn this particular way to like wave it, and it will make a really 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 massive soap bubble. So if we made some of those, because those are all like at home things, right? You can make. I think I believe I've heard that the yes, Morgana, bubble wizards, exactly. Yes. Bubble wizards, right. I've heard that the bubble wizard's magic is actually quite difficult in practice to do the motion to make the big bubbles. But we can make some of those and give it a go. We can try. We can but try. And I was just thinking we could just do like Bubble Day, you know? And that's the event. It's just like there's just bubbles. There's just bubbles everywhere. I just think that would be kind of sick, and it would just like kind of lift loads of people's spirits because it's just Bubble Day. There's just loads and loads of bubbles. That's the kind of bullshit I've been working on for the community aspect of the struggle. Sorry, I got distracted by a neighborhood WhatsApp message. We must seek the fellowship of the Order of the Bubble Wizards. Big agree, Vulpix. 100%. And then the political struggle. Okay, so what's happened with the political struggle? As I've been describing, the law of England and Wales is dog shit and loves landlords and loves property owners and hates human beings and hates tenants, and it sucks. So, in order to have the like smoothest pathway from here to justice, I guess, the law may need to be changed, right? And so you need to find the people who can make some kind of difference in that. Good news, there's a brand new Prime Minister of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party is trying to is really desperate to be seen as left-wing again, or capable of doing left-wing things and capable of like taking care of people's needs. So that's quite cool, isn't it? Maybe it's really hard to tell. I will be talking about Burnham a bit in a minute when we get onto some. My goodness, it's already so late. I've been streaming for 2.5 hours. Well, really like 2 hours 10 because I was on like the loading screen for a long time. Princess Back Knight 666 says attending the Bubble Day event and age regressing so goddamn hard. My goodness, that's right, the woke greens. We have had to interact with some woke greens in dealing with the council so far. It's been a pretty wacky time. What happened in these local elections I told you about, right? There were local elections. Everyone was like canvassing us, telling us, "Oh, we're going to help your party. We're going to help your estate so much. All of our party is the one that loves your estate the most and is going to do the most stuff." And then what happened in the local elections was they got fucking no overall control. Like there wasn't enough of any kind of any one party didn't have enough councillors. Didn't have enough councillors to like just form the cabinet on their own, and so there had to be a coalition, and so they had to spend a month negotiating how they would operate a coalition and who would be in the coalition, and eventually we got Greens and Lib Dems. My goodness, the woke Greens. And it's a very, very bizarre turnout because basically all the Greens, like the majority of the Greens who are now in power in Southwark Council, are people who were in the Labour Party until very recently and were too far left for the Labour Party and quit it and became Greens and have like come back around after being like, in particular in Southwark, like it's particularly nasty because our local MP is accused of rigging an election to make the to make a like further right Labour councillor the council lead, right? And then, oh my god, a fly has gone inside my ring light. How? What? Okay, I don't understand how, but a fly has gone inside of my ring light, and I don't, like... That's not a fly, that's a moth. Oh no, I gotta get it out of there. What the fuck? What the fuck? Okay. My local MP, anyway, is accused of like, somehow manipulating something in the council to make it so that, these left-wing Labour guys would not be in charge of the council, and that, like, someone who's more friendly to, uh, like, like money and like property development would be in instead. And so like the left Labour people quit and became Greens and then won the election and are now in charge of the council. It's pretty crazy. There's basically been a coup. I don't know. In the local area, there's been this like coup, and then like at the national level, we've just had like the prime minister change at the same time, while all of this stuff is happening. So it's, yeah, like a lot all at once. And also like the thing happening is part of the fallout from the Renters' Rights Act. So yeah, just like spectacular stuff going on. Um, what can I say about this? So I have tried a little bit so far to like not identify myself or talk about any particular neighbor with too identifying stuff, just to like respect people's privacy. And again, like, please respect my privacy and just like, you know, and whatever. Now I need to remember that my channel like has been historically like watched by people who are like kind of a politically big deal in the UK. And I'm going to try and keep my opinions of any particular political figures to myself for the sake of the neighborhood. I am, after all, an officer of the Tenants Association. I need to be diplomatic here. But it's been an interesting time working with the council. Something I can say is we researched what possible future situations could make the estate like safe for the people who've been here like longer than anywhere else, any other home in their lives. Like some people have been here nearly 40 years, right? Like imagine being asked to leave your home. Now imagine being asked to leave a home that you've lived in for 40 years and raised your kids in and raised your grandkids in, right? Like that's insane. That's completely insane. Imagine moving into a house that is on like a housing project that is being constructed. Yours is the house on the lot so far. And then 40 years later, someone who bought the estate 6 months ago says you have to leave. I... Anyway, how do we create long-term safety for that person? Because there's dozens of that person here. It seems to me pretty obvious that if our landlord were to sell, we would be in danger of the exact same thing happening with a new landlord anyway. It also seems fairly obvious to me that the people who would be best equipped to say what should happen to the homes of the people who've lived here for nearly 40 years is the people who live here. Right? All the people who've lived here longer than any other place by like an order of magnitude in their lifetime, they should have a say in what happens to these homes. This is a crazy idea I've come up with myself called Sophieocracy. It's where I imagine if everybody was Sophie, what would they want? And then, because everyone is their own Sophie in a sense, they all get like a vote and a say, and that way all the Sophies get a say in it. So it's a Sophieocracy, and that's, as I say, my own idea I've just invented. It's the first time ever that there's been an idea for a political system where all the people get a vote and get a say in what happens. So we researched like what is the most like control over a place that we could have, right? Like how could we be essentially a housing co-op? And with some luck and the right connections, we happened upon a body in the GLA, the Greater London Authority, which basically like is a cooperative of cooperatives. Like it's a big bunch of housing co-ops that like co-own each other. Like, and we got the guy from there to write a proposal for how we could be part of that, even though this estate is like a lot bigger than any parts of that currently exist. This is a tactical move because a lot of people, Princess Black Knight 666 says, a world of 8 billion Sophies. Wow. 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 Just wow. I feel like sometimes there are influencers who play up like their like self-loathing as an like aesthetic of authenticity or whatever, and like I love myself. I've done a little work to love myself. I think that the world would be very different and in some ways more boring if it was just me, but also like wow, what a perfect like utopia of Sophie's. Right, what are we talking about? How to make the best outcome possible. Like, how do we win? Like, and therefore, what's the political campaign around that? Okay, so it turns out there's a body in the GLA that already exists that is like a cooperative of cooperatives and also helps people to form cooperatives. That's pretty cool. Okay, the landlord is not currently interested in selling the estate to us, nor do we have tens of millions of pounds. But good news, by the way. Actually, let me tell you this. This rocks. Like this is great. The landlord doesn't have tens of millions of pounds either. They took a loan to buy the estate, and they've been defaulting on their loan for almost the whole time. They've been losing money this for such a long time now. They really thought they were gonna like fucking turn this shit around real fast and start making tons of money off this place, and they're having such a bad time. And by the way, that's why when they're saying like everyone's being mean to us, they don't care that people are being mean to them. They care that they're losing money. Like it's if everyone was being mean to them and they carried on making money, they'd be like, yeah, I'm a big business tough guy. I got a suit and a tie. I'm gonna negotiate. I'm gonna play hardball. All this shit. They're losing money. The money is gone. Where is? It's like a magic trick. And so, and that's why they're crying about it. Anyway, sorry, I'm just like, if you notice that I get filled with like ecstatic glee at the thought of the landlords being unhappy and losing money, it's because that is how I feel, and they made my old lady neighbors scared on purpose. So I will continue to feel good whenever I remember they're probably having a shit day. Anyway. So there's this proposal, and the reason that the proposal is useful, like the proposal for how we could become a co-op, is that people love to think of themselves as non-ideological and speaking and dealing only in rational and realist terms. This is something we touch on the stream like quite a lot. And it's people aren't rational and don't just deal in the world of what's possible. Things change all the time. And if you want to create change, you're going to have to deal in the world of what's, not currently happening. Because, I mean, this relates a little bit to our Duma conversation from earlier, right? Like, what is currently happening, shit sucks. Does that mean what's going to happen forever is shit sucks? No. And does it mean the only things you can do are just, like, sit in the shit and suck with it? No. you can do things and you can change things, but you have to start believing in some things you can't currently see in order to do that. In the same way that you have to you have to touch and use a thing you can't currently see to turn the lights on. Like, you don't just sit in the dark, right? Walada, welcome to the stream. Lovely to have you here. Walada says, "Hello. Is it good when the bank gets the property or whatever gave them the loan? Is that as bad as the landlords in general? That would be very bad. Luckily, we're not in any immediate danger of that. The property is collateral for the loan, so them defaulting on it like is bad in pointing in that direction. But like they're going to keep on trying to like they are currently doing so much building work on the estate that shows that they have money to be like making business and investment decisions, and the much more likely thing that would happen that would be bad is that they would put in whatever money they need to refurbish the properties that they currently have empty, get people into those who are paying top market rate, and then sell us on as fast as possible to some other rube, basically, and then we would have to start all this shit all over again, which would be absolutely exhausting. But they may try to do something to that effect because we're losing them a bunch of money. The bank is unlikely to get the property. It's much more likely that they sell up and then have to pass that money immediately back to the bank, having just lost a bunch of money, and basically like go home and lick their wounds. Which is why they would then feel like they'd gotten away from the problem and were safe from it. It's even possible that the council would like stop pursuing them so hard, like the immediate crisis would have shifted into something else, and the council would want to allocate their resources into helping out the residents in different ways. So like, maybe the pressure to bring enforcement power against them would, be lower. Unless they're tenants in other places, like the people who rent from them in other locations got information sent to them that illuminates what their legal rights are. For example, tells them about selective licensing and how if someone hasn't applied for a selective license, you can get up to a year's rent back from that landlord if you've been paying rent for a place that doesn't have a license when it should. And other things that can qualify someone for a rent repayment order. That would be... If that happened, they would probably feel like they were cursed, and like something had been sort of magically visited upon them that they just couldn't like take off, right? Like they were, they thought they just made this one bad investment and they'd gotten out of it. But then like, if all their other tenants suddenly caught wind of the fact that they could make a bunch of money off them by filling out like one form, I don't know, dude. That would probably be a really bad day for them. I wonder if that day will happen someday soon. I don't know. Morgana says landlord trapped in a bubble by bubble wizards. Chat, I'm not sure I'm gonna get to stream any liberal slop stuff tonight because there's just so much organizing stuff to talk about, and I haven't really talked about the political campaign of it yet at all. Fuck. This is kind of like, I've just been, Should we make this one just organizing? Would you like me to switch over? Chat, you have a vote. Your vote can also be weighted by donating. You feel free to send in your unpaid opinions to the chat. Just know that if you do donate with an opinion about whether it should be organizing chat or looking at some liberal slop, just know that if you donate, you know, that vote will sway things more. That's the system we're running here. It's a Sophiocracy. I'm just having a little bounty guy. Bounty. That guy there. Bounty. It's got coconut in it. Shredded coconut and chocolate. Good. You also don't have to vote, you know, if you've been enjoying the stream, you can just pay for the stream. Because of how I'm working right now. Like, you know how busy I've been describing being? I haven't had a lot of me time. I would rather just be chilling. Just something to consider. The chat looks pretty united around carry on talking about organizing. Okay. I'll think about how to title the VOD for this so no one feels misled. Naive and foolish streamer starts stream thinking that liberal slop is going to happen. Talks about organizing for 4 hours. It could happen. It could happen to anyone. Will it be the title of this VOD? None of us now know. But you, the VOD viewer, you already know and have known for 2.5 to 3 hours now. Okay. Okay. So, our first big success in the political thing was making this proposal. And getting it done soon as well, before we started meeting with people. As I say, realism is considered to be a really core approach and part of people's perspective at every political level. People have budgets to balance, right? They have protocol to follow. They have powers that the law says they can enforce, and they have legal responsibilities placed upon them. So what is realistic and what can be done and how fast it will happen, all these things are considered to be something that if you aren't taking seriously and can't demonstrate that you are taking seriously, you aren't worth listening to. And that doesn't just apply to a whole person, but applies on, you know, an issue-to-issue basis. Obviously, if someone is just like all round seemingly unserious, you're not going to listen to like the one serious thing they have to say. But you need to demonstrate being serious about everything. I am quite confident this is an area where if I were cis, if I were a man, if I was straight, I would probably have an easier time in this particular part of the organizing. Because people take some kinds of people more seriously implicitly, which is quite frustrating. You will notice this is exactly how all ideas get distorted by this notion of realism, right? Realism makes a claim towards something incredibly objective, hard, unbreakable realities. And when I say you have to get taken seriously. You have to show that you're serious, etc. I'm talking about aesthetics, right? We made a subtle shift into a world of aesthetics, and now it's about the aesthetic of being serious. This is how Keir Starmer got to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He had an aesthetic of seriousness and no fucking answers to help the country with whatsoever, right? We have the morally correct position and we need to demonstrate seriousness. So we got a man to write a document for us. We've been taking it around to all our meetings, showing it to people who we meet with, and then whenever someone expresses some interest, we basically just collect their interest as part of the plan, right? You take a proposal to John John Bopper. I don't know if this is the name I've given the character now. You take your proposal to John Bopper, who works at the whatever department, and you show it to John, and he says, yeah, that's kind of, honestly, that's kind of viable. Like, I think that could be done if the conditions were right for it. Obviously, we don't know if the landlord's going to sell to a collective or whatever, or would you need a compulsory purchase order, or what would need to be done. But if it were to happen, yeah, it seems viable. And then you go across to the next meeting, and the next meeting is with your local MP, and you say, we've got this proposal, and it was written by this person, and it has these benefits. And also, John Bopper from the whatever department said that it was a viable plan. And then, if you're really lucky, your local MP will say, well, and say something positive about it, and then you can bring that elsewhere. There is a lot of aspect of, like, we're having to think hard about framing and how to get the core messaging around the estate delivered in the right way. Mellifluous Oak, welcome to the stream. It's lovely to have you here. First time chatter, and your first chat message says, yeah, I think what you've written here is a bop. John Bopper. Thank you. That is actually exactly what he said when I met with him. We have to think about the messaging a little bit, and that's been something that we've been, figuring out on the fly as we go, because we have to find ways to describe this problem. And people who have been here for the whole stream will notice I started describing the problem by talking about the history of the estate. That it was built as something called affordable housing, which is this euphemism for, like, it's social housing. It is social housing. It's for people who need to be in social housing, and it's serving the purpose of social housing, but it's a private rental, right? That's what affordable housing means, and that, like, that messaging is really important for us to communicate, because we need for people to understand the kind of higher up we take this issue, especially that there is a wide scale, like a nationwide, like, problem in the UK of affordable housing, where people are being exploited and victimized by landlords who are, only seeking the profit incentive, only doing the economically rational thing. And then there needs to be a solution to that. So we begin to pitch the idea as, right, this is something that could solve the problem of people who need affordable housing being exploited. This is a way that people who need to live in affordable housing could manage their own communities, manage their own homes. And that's where it becomes a political thing. Now, the political campaign is unlikely to create change with the urgency that we need to help people here. Like, even in the fastest model, right, the fastest way that you could get this through would be someone with the appropriate level of power, say the new prime minister who says he's going to do something with housing, says, I'm going to pilot a new scheme in this area with this estate, and if it goes well, then we will do more of these. If that were to happen, I still think it would take, like, a year, right? And there are people who are who have eviction notices, who are like on the line waiting to like find out, are they going to like, are the landlords serving them like court papers? Which, by the way, this is a tangent back into like the legal stuff. You see what I mean? That like the phases of helping people, like they completely overlap and there's no separating them. Um, so in the last couple of weeks, the landlord has sent offers. Although I've been saying this as offers because like it's not nice. Um, for people who have an eviction notice to have their eviction notice dropped if they accept an enormous rent increase, like £600, and sign a new, worse contract. And the housing officers from the council have been encouraging them to sign this. And that's just completely insane. Like, on so many levels, that's completely and utterly unhinged. Okay, let's explore what's going on here. So, the council is a big system. Big systems of people are things without mind, memory, or center. They are treated like they are a corporeal, like they have a body. This is the nation. This is the nature of corporating things. This is why we call them corporations when we're looking at big collections of people doing a thing with a stated goal and direction and so on. And we talk about it like it's a person, like it's got thoughts, like it's got feelings, like it can remember things, but it doesn't have mind, memory, or center. And the housing needs department of a local council and the homelessness prevention team of a local council is trying to keep people from being homeless on their watch, right? What that means is people make a homelessness application and they take reasonable steps to house that person, and hopefully that gets them a house and they get to live in that house, and then they can be discharged from the caseworker's caseload, and the caseworker has moved on to another case and has like reduced the caseload, and B, the overall number of people who've made applications goes down, and both of those means success. Good, well done. You're winning at your job. You get a pat on the head. That's the systemic incentives in homelessness prevention in local councils. Okay, reasonable steps to help someone get a home include telling them to get an extra job, telling them to work more, telling them that their kids should get a job. Reasonable steps to help someone who is facing an unaffordable rent increase include the council can make discretionary housing payments to pay for the difference between what the person can afford and what the rent is for a little while, not forever. On one level, people are just dealing with the powers that have been given to them in their role. On another level, like I have been shocked by somehow some people have been behaving, like how some of these housing officers have treated my neighbors, and it's like genuinely I've been like gobsmacked. I'll leave it at that, but like fucking hell. That's one level that it's insane on. Here's another level that it's insane on. If housing officers offer you reasonable steps to not be homeless and you turn them down, you can be classified as what is called intentionally homeless. Anyone with experience dealing with local authorities in the UK and being homeless knows that intentionally homeless is a weapon that councils frequently use against people who are being difficult in any way, including, and I have experienced this from volunteering at the Harm Reduction Hub and helping people who are street homeless drug users, refusing to live in accommodation provided that was moldy, that had black mold in it. Like, you're supposed to report that there's an issue and then wait for them to rehouse you, and you will be low priority because you already have a house. So if they house you in a dangerous property, you can't just leave. You can't just say, I don't want this. You can't just refuse the house that's offered. You have to accept it and then wait for them to rehouse you after you complain. Completely insane. And if you don't, you could be classified as intentionally homeless. Guess what support people who are intentionally homeless get from local authorities? None. It really sucks. That's 2 levels that it's completely crazy on. Okay, here's another level it's completely crazy on. Why should you have to pay a massive rent increase in order to not be evicted? If you think you're the landlord giving some kind of concession here, being nice to people, like being like, oh well, we accept that we've done something a bit not okay here, we'll make an offer to, instead of instead of evicting them, they can just pay several £100s more every month. Completely insane. On top of that, there, as I've discussed, are legal mechanisms where you can give like an official rent increase notice. This is an increase contingent on like you will get evicted otherwise. That's fucked. And also, they don't want to serve the notice because they would have to go through tribunals with those people as well, which yes would take some time, and they wouldn't be able to like backdate the rent, so they would like lose the money in the meantime. But what's more likely, like what's kind of moreover than that, is that they would lose those tribunals because those properties are old, and all the carpets are old and shit, and there's like mess everywhere, and like the windows are worn out, and all the stuff that just happens when a property is old and needs refurbishing. And if they wanted those like higher rents for it, they could refurbish them. They could refurbish them, and then they could charge a higher rent for it. But they don't want to do that. They want to tell people, if you don't sign this contract with this big rent increase without any refurbishments, no repairs, no anything, no improvements to earn that money, just sign. If you don't, we'll evict you. That's what they're currently telling people at the moment. That's literally the current state for like dozens of people. It's so insane. Okay, here's another level that it's insane on. I think we're up to 4, right? Why would you have to sign a new contract? You don't have to sign a new contract to accept a rent increase, right? Why would you have to sign a new contract? That's a whole extra ask that's being presented as just like part and parcel of the same thing. We've looked at the contracts. One of my neighbors told me, and I haven't seen this myself, but like one of my neighbors told me that his contract that he was sent included an indemnity clause, as in, if you sign this, you can't accuse us of doing anything wrong. What? What? It's completely insane. Anyway, that's the current like legal situation for people, and it's really, really fucked. Chat, I have been streaming now for over 3 hours. I am working right now. I am doing my job right now. I'd really like if I could get paid for doing my job. So please, if you are enjoying the stream or the VOD, consider paying for the stream or the VOD. If you're a chatter, you're watching right now live, you can pay for the stream by subscribing or cheering or donating directly using command TIP. That's, let me type it into the chat for you, !TIP. This is my only stream in July because I've been so busy helping out my neighbors. I've been helping my neighbors to not get evicted. No one's paying me to do that. If you would like to pay me to do that, please donate now. Like I want to be doing it. I also like need money to live. There's no danger I'm not going to be doing it. I'm just saying, like, this is the reason I haven't been streaming, is because I've been doing something that's valuable to society. And if you're watching the VOD, please check out the links down below, especially my Patreon. Monthly support helps me out the most because then it's a reliable thing I have long term. Okay. I'm going to take a breath. Hopefully, some people will feel moved to donate. I am going to aim to be back to regular, to weekly streams from now on. Things have let up slightly. Now that most of the rent tribunals are done. If I have any things that end up getting like scheduled, like important meetings or whatever, for a Friday evening or Friday afternoon, I will, in fact, just prioritize that. I will also try to get back to doing game streams on Saturdays. Not tomorrow. It is Trans Pride in London tomorrow. I'm going to be pretty tired from that, and also like just need some time to just chill to myself after everything that's been going on. But I will be trying to do that too. Again, if you're enjoying the stream, please, please, please pay for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. If you subscribe, you get access to Sophie from Mars emotes on Twitch and ad-free viewing. The emotes include astrophotography that I've done myself with my telescope. And if you are a subscriber and you do exclamation mark space, no, what is it? Copy pasta space? Yes, copy pasta space. Then you get a little art made of emotes that I made that you can copy pasta, and it's space. Okay. So we're trying to get things changed politically. That's gonna take fucking forever. None of this will be urgent enough to like help people right away, but like laying the foundations as soon as possible for some kind of change maximizes the chances that it may, right? So what we're doing, I mean, it also has some other benefits because we're going around and speaking to like other groups, like the Social Housing Action Campaign, for example. They then sent someone along to our meeting with the council who like helped to impress them, and I think that really made a difference because we had like an old trade unionist there. We've also had like donations from union branches to the Tenants Association. Like, this stuff does make a big difference. Mellifluous oak. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for a £60 donation. No message. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful for that. And I will buy myself something nice. Probably food. It will probably be. I'm gonna eat that. I'm gonna probably eat that unless I spend it on stuff for one of my neighborhood projects. I have a plan to make like a big sunshade that can go between houses so that it can cool off the road because the heat waves here have been getting more and more intense. Obviously, there are like 3,000 heat deaths in the UK this summer so far, and if you can cool down road surfaces specifically, which absorb a ton of heat, then you can keep like whole areas much, much cooler. So I have a plan to make a big sunshade, which hopefully, we'll see. Where was I? Yes, laying down the foundations early on for some kind of political campaign maximizes the chances that it will change something in time to help anyone. And then we also get other kinds of support, like we had donations from union branches, which is pretty cool. We also now have like comrades who are part of like who just there are some people in this world who really love like union meetings of people, like meetings of like trade union coalitions and collectives. Million Peaches, thank you so much for the £10 donation with the message bark 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 meow meow meow. Cutie. There are people in this world who just love union meetings and also like political party meetings, and they will just go to as many of those as possible, and that's their life. And they will like help you to like navigate that world and like pass motions that can make difference in stuff that you just would have no idea otherwise. This kind of political magical creature, this little fey spirit, this gnome, is a comrade that we like happened upon. Basically, after the shit started happening and we started organizing against it, basically as soon as we put up enough resistance to like to just be here, like to not be just completely bulldozed immediately, campaigners sort of started finding us. So there was one local campaigner. She's been like a campaigner in the area for decades now. She actually was trying to become a counselor in a nearby ward, and one of the residents of this estate yelled at her for being a socialist because he was kind of in a misinformation rabbit hole. He was like, I love reform, all this stuff, I hate socialists. And he said, like, you're doing nothing to help what's going on over there where I live, all this stuff. And she hadn't heard about it, and she had the most wonderful, and this is why I'm talking about like fae spirits, these organizers being like little gnomes. Like, this is such a whimsical response to being yelled at by a guy who says he's voting reform. She went to find out what was going on. Like, she was like, I don't know about, like, he's saying about like that, what's going on over there and all this stuff. I don't know about that. I'm gonna go find out what's going on over there. And then yeah, she just came along and just like helped us out with stuff and connected us to loads of people, like press and legal support, and now also another local campaigner who's very like similar in manner. And it really feels like being discovered by a little gnome person who then like takes you to the gnome kingdom. This is what it's like meeting local campaigners. It's delightful. It's just genuinely delightful. And yeah, so we're now making some progress through like union infrastructure and campaign groups. I have had to talk to a bunch of people who are affiliated with the SWP a fair amount. My biggest issue with the SWP is that it's useless. Like, my biggest issue is that it's just taking up a ton of space and it just doesn't feel like it's really achieving anything. Like, a lot of people focus on, like, a lot of people sort of, they say that the SWP, like, shouldn't exist, and should have, like, disbanded. And I completely agree with this. Like, after the big, cover-up scandal where like one of their like top activists had like abused like several people, yeah, like they shouldn't have a like pretended it didn't happen, denied it, covered it up, all this stuff. That was fucked. That was fucked, obviously. And B, like, after that shit, like, and it became apparent that they had acted in that way, they should have just like disbanded the party and allowed people to form a new party, because people would have just been able to like wash their hands of the bad stink of the party they were in and just, go on organizing, like, and instead like they just carry on with this like extremely tarnished political reputation that's just like, yeah, and then they operate through a bunch of like delegated like front groups like Stand Up to Racism. And I just like, everyone's so resentful towards them. With orgs, it's just like, you just should have disbanded, and it would be fine if people, people who were in that org, because it's a big fucking party, they would just form a new party and that would be fine. Like, like, I think we talked a bit about, how like cruel and harmful and in some cases deadly like ostracism to individuals can be, and like the immense harm and like the lack of space for like healing it can be in leftist and queer spaces. Frequently like this thing happens, but with an org it's not like that. Like like you could, like you can just disband the org and announce you're starting a new party. You could even just get rid of everyone on that committee or whatever. I don't know, just like they just really fucked it. Like the SWP really fucked it. And I think a lot of the time I hear people talk about that stuff and that's sort of their like grievance with the SWP. But I think that I think my grievance with it is just that they haven't like justified themselves continuing to exist. Like they haven't like they could have done like, gotten some fucking noticeable shit done to restore what they're doing a bit. And it's been is it over a decade? Like it's a long time. Yeah, it must be. I don't know. The SWP just tires me out. Anyway, lots of little meetings, lots of Zoom meetings with like elderly activists, which I find incredibly cute. Just like a really wholesome, nice time. And we have contacted Miata Fanbele via the Social Housing Action Campaign to give her a message about what's going on the estate and what we hope could happen, and to pass on the proposal about how we could be a housing co-op. We did that because she did an interview where she said she was like the brains behind Burnham. And then she was appointed not the housing person, so that might have been like a wasted shot there. I don't know. But we'll see. Maybe she'll reply to it after all. Angela Rayner was appointed housing minister with Burnham coming in, and she's just said rent controls are not going to be... Did she say not possible? What did she say? What did she say? Hang on a sec. Angela Rayner rules out rent controls. What does that mean? Just rules them out. No. Angela Rayner says, no. Housing Secretary Angela Rayner has said Prime Minister Andy Burnham is not looking at bringing in rent controls in England. She told BBC Breakfast that changes made through the Renters' Rights Act, which came into effect in May, were already having a significant impact on the market. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so the Renters' Rights Act... The Renters' Rights Act made it so that they couldn't serve Section 21 eviction notices anymore. It also introduced a bunch of civil penalty notices, so local authorities have a bunch more powers to prosecute landlords. On the whole, very positive for humanity and renters. Specifically here on the estate, it's kind of the source of a ton of people's problems. And it really sucks. So... a ton of the Section 21 eviction notices delivered on this estate were delivered just before the Renters' Rights Act came in, because they were treating it as a deadline, and so they did this massive wave, they did this mass eviction to try to do it while they still legally could. And I feel completely insane that people aren't talking about this, the Renters' Rights Act deleted rent controls. This article we're just looking at, let me bring it up again, right? Okay. Angela Rayner rules out rent controls in England. Her reason for this, the Renters' Rights Act is making big waves, is changing loads of stuff, right? We had rent controls. People in private affordable housing had rent controls before the Renters' Rights Act came in. The Renters' Rights Act, because so many rent review clauses that landlords put in contracts are predatory and designed to increase the rent more frequently or higher or whatever, the Renters' Rights Act had a thing that was like, we're removing rent review clauses. And the situation for tons of people here and tons of people across the country is that they are in affordable housing, but it's private. And so the only thing keeping them in their home has been this rent review clause that says we can't put it up more than whatever percent. And the Renters' Rights Act just made it impossible to enforce those, just deleted them from the law. And no one is talking about this. And it's created this massive crisis. And I'm absolutely certain it's created the same crisis in places all around the country that haven't yet managed to organize this well or tell their story to anyone. I'm absolutely fucking certain. It's possible that we're like the biggest single place in the country where it's happening to people. We might be the largest scale example of the problem, but like we are definitely not the only ones, and there is definitely like a mass scale problem. Anyway, she's just ruled out rent controls. The market's, too turbulent right now because of the wonderful Renters' Rights Act that was so good to renters that we need to consider things a little bit more and be nicer to landlords for a little while before doing things like rent controls. You deleted our rent controls! What are you talking about? Come on! Come on! Do I have more to chat about? Chat, hit me with some questions about organizing if you have them. I'm just going to think about if there's anything else that I haven't talked about so far in this enormous organizing update. I've been streaming for 3 hours and a solid bit now. If you've been enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. There are over 30 people watching right now. If everybody watching donated £3.50, that would be £100. Imagine if that happened. Imagine how happy I would feel then. Really happy is the answer. And also, like, I'd be less worried about the money I haven't been making because I haven't been streaming because I have been helping my neighbors not get evicted. So you know. Why, you know. Famished Jet on Angela Reyna says, I might be uninformed on her past, but watching Reyna slowly be consumed by modern labor TM is a little heartbreaking. Yeah, I don't know where she's come from. I haven't seen anything. Nothing she's done so far has like caught my eye, particularly impressed me. So yeah. Elibu, welcome to the stream. Elibu says, "Oh yeah, the landlords have it so bad." No, it is just crazy. Like they have they have bowed to market logic in a truly to a truly sycophantic degree with what they've done here, right? They have made it illegal to serve a Section 21 no-fault eviction, to just kick someone out without a stated reason. They have introduced a bunch of civil penalty notices, so they're like, see, now we're regulating it better, right? So like this commodity is being regulated better. It can't just be immediately deprived from people. People can't be deprived of it, rather. We're regulating it better. We've got these civil penalty notices. And in return, to balance things out, every rent can be legally set to a fair market rent as determined by a tribunal, right? Like I should have mentioned this. They've funded the tribunals a bunch more. So like it's a part of the Renters' Rights Act that you should go through to tribunal if you can to challenge your rent and then be set, a market rent. This is a part of it. Like the worship of the market in this is just completely insane. I just feel like this, I don't know, this phrase like fair market rent, I honestly like feel a bit haunted by, because it's just like, it's not fair on the market. It's not fair for housing to be on the market. Like houses are where people live. They shouldn't be on the market. There's no such thing as a fair market rent in the first place. Anyway, I have been meaning to do a stream about Prime Minister Andy Burnham. I wrote a Substack piece about Prime Minister Andy Burnham. As soon as it was confirmed that Starmer was stepping down, I wrote a Substack piece called After Starmer, After Burnham, After That. I was going to read it today, and then we talked about organizing all day. Wow. And I haven't even noticed the time passing. Isn't that crazy? It's like we've been talking this whole time. Wow, you're so interesting. And the... Sorry. And so I will do the Liberal Slop stream I've been planning next week. We will talk about Burnham, unless something massive comes up in the political world that warrants 10 trillion extremely bad think pieces, and then I have to do a Liberal Slop stream focused around that. If they invent something stupider and more frustrating than AI, I may have to do a Liberal Slop stream about that instead. However, I think I'm going to do a stream next week about Andy Burnham being Prime Minister now, what that means, what that doesn't mean. We're going to read my Substack piece. If you want to read it before then, it's on my Substack. It's called After Starmer, After Burnham, After That. And just now, we're going to raid into another streamer. I'll give you a last reminder just before we do that if you have been enjoying the stream, please consider supporting me. Please support me if you can. I am quite poor. I am in danger of my rent going up quite a bit, and I am working unpaid a whole second job at the moment to try and keep my neighbors in their homes, and it's very, very exhausting. It's very, very rewarding, as you can tell from my story, but it's also it's a lot. And so if you can support me by subscribing or cheering or donating directly, please do. And even better, if you can support me on Patreon, then please do that, and that will help me to survive. Walada says, what's the fair market price of a building that has woodworms? As that can happen if nobody cares about the building, and having insurance is not fair market from the landlord. That's a crazy hypothetical you conjure. Wouldn't it be nuts if I knew people who work entirely round the clock, who live in a house that's absolutely full of mold? Like, so full of mold they have to pull the furniture out from the walls so their furniture doesn't get covered in mold as well? And the landlord is trying to charge them a fair market rent. Wouldn't that be crazy, hypothetically? Wouldn't it be crazy if the landlord painted the inside of their house with outside of a house paint, and it started flaking and going into the heater, and the heater broke, and they had to replace the landlord replaced it with a heater that cost less to install but more to run, so drove up their electricity bill while trying to raise their rent? Wouldn't it be crazy if that person messaged the landlord and said, it's always been like for like replacements, you should replace it with the same kind of heater I had before, which is cheaper to run, and the landlord said, this is all you're getting, and the guy who was installing it, who works for the landlord, said, this won't adequately heat the space, this is a bad choice? Just hypothetically, like, wouldn't that be, like, nuts? I think, probably. Okay. Star Dudes Valley. Wait, what's going on? I have 30 alt accounts. Ban me if you want. You seem to be having a kind of a time there, bud. I think you should go for a walk or something. We're gonna raid into another streamer. I hope you've all enjoyed the stream today, talking about organizing, touching grass, being outside, talking to neighbors, having a nice time. Being really tired, being really stressed, fighting the landlord, having a little cry, making the landlord have a little cry, making the council members have a little cry, partying, watching football. And I'll see you next week. No, wait, I'll see you on Red Planet on Sunday, twitch.tv/redplanetlive, where we'll be talking about organizing against data centers, hopefully. We're going to raid into Joan Atoms next. Make your favorite animal noises on your way in. And make your favorite animal noises in the chat so it's as confusing a time as possible for Joan, who I believe is streaming with Brett from Cinemarxism, someone who has been on Red Planet. Okay, let me see everyone's favorite animal noises in chat on our way in to raid Joan. Here we go. Okay, we ready to raid? I'll see you all on Red Planet, and then I'll see you all next week for the Burnham stream. I hope you all have a fantastic time. I hope you all meet your neighbors, and remember, you need to say it to yourself. I believe that we will win.